All right, Christmas action. So I just have to firstly draw attention that we are again in front of the Christmas hearth. And I have to thank my heart, my boo, for getting this fire back in view, because it was almost completely out. 'Twas but cinders, 'twas but glowing cinders, and he made it come to life once again. And I'm so impressed and happy, and also really tired. Oh, we're crooked. It's cool. It's Christmas. I'm really tired. So I it's Christmas, it's a holiday. So I said, hey, ho, yeah, ho, ho, ho. I'll just do a really, really complicated poem with about 35 pages of just research. I'll just research about 35 pages and then tell me. Just tell me. I did tons of research and I left out so much stuff too. But firstly, I wanted to show you the most important part of our Yule, as it were, is the Yule Log, as I'm sure many of you have heard me talking about. I said the other day I should start a whole blog about Yule Logs called the Yule Log blog. Just talk about them all year round. It's been cut into. It's been feasted upon. But it's got this beautiful we don't know if it's a fox or a wolf. It's a wox, and it's looking towards the future of 2022, which is right in view, right up here. So I just wanted to show you the beauty and the bounty and the majesty of it. It's befitting royalty, which we're going to talk about presently. I'm in my very festive regalia. Yeah, I'm covering the fire. It's hard. We're in a hard spot here. I'm trying to show you all the merriment that I've got, and just technicalities are impeding me. It's okay. So, got myself this snazzy nightgown. I've always wanted one just like it. It's much like John in Peter Pan. I said just recently, I so want a John nightgown. Look, I've gone and found myself one. Profoundly happy. Man, my top hat's downstairs too. I could have made it really snappy. That's okay. That's okay. I'll do another poem all about John and his experiences getting along in Wonderland. My boo also got me these fanciful, handsiffle. They're friends. They're finger puppet friends. I would put on a whole show for you, but I've just spent many hours writing an extremely long, intricate poem about the 12 days of Christmas. So yes, you heard it here, folks. I was feeling quite exhausted, so I thought I would just throw myself into one of the most complex poems I've ever done. I'm not sure how long it runs. I'm scared. I watched it being fed out of the printer because, I still want to eat my Yule log. That's what I want. That's what I'm dreaming of. I haven't had my dessert yet, and it's quite late. And I'm losing my flames. It's okay. The log is still burning, and my desire is still burning for the chocolate Yule log. But I watched this being fed out of the printer, and I said, oh, please let this be the last page, and the pages just kept coming. I have to give mad credit. I took some quotations, which I think I've given all of the credit for and to, and then kind of changed the wording of some very clever pronouncements and history and lines by Lucy Worsley. Worles? I can't talk. It's very late. Worsley? Was that right? Lucy Worsley? Gosh, I just had the letters in my head, and I'm a big fan of hers, but I need to go to bed soon. It's where my loon brain is at. But the 12 days of Tudor Christmas. Is that right? Can you Google it? I feel like I just recited it to myself like 4 times, and now I feel like I'm saying it wrong. 12 Days of Tudor Christmas by Lucy. See, this is ridiculous. I'm losing the ability to actually speak. Lucy, forgive me. But I used Lucy Worsley. I've got it. Yes, I'm a fan of hers. So, I've used a spot of her wording and a spot of my own, and the Yule Log, as it were. And I'm just, we got some flamage in. We really did. My kin and my friends. But we're gonna go Christmas tree-ward, because we're losing the light of the fire. And that was the whole point, is the light of it. So here we are, new angle of the Christmas tree. An angle you haven't even seen yet, my friends. And this rainbow light up here with these elves. And we're just gonna get to it, because we must eat dessert. Yes, we are assured to eat dessert soon. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into this crazy lunatic poem of mine. And I think some of it doesn't rhyme, and I hope it mostly makes sense. Some of it may bounce around. There's certainly some profound discrepancies in all my research. There are several versions of the 12 Days of Christmas. There's the song, as you all know. There's the pagan, heathen version, as it were. There's several iterations from many versions of Catholicism and Christianity and the Puritans and all the shuns and ends, and there's just a lot. There's a lot of information. And so some days started on day 1. This one that we used in my mother's shop for, 18 years that I was in there working and growing up as a human. We use this one that starts on day 0. So if the numbers get crazy, just know that my research isn't perfect, and I'm going to have to cite my sources in the description of the video, because there was like 30 additional pages to this, and I just couldn't get it all in. So here's the poem itself. It's called Contemplating Christmas, which I got the title from my sweet dog Gizmo, who was sitting by himself in the chair by the fire for a while, just staring into the hearth. Bless his little sweet dog heart, contemplating Christmas. Christmas comes but once a year, but you can raise your glasses for 12 long days, my dears, and even longer. If I have a say, let's make our way through one of many versions of the dozen famous days. For the Tudors' Christmas, it was a huge craze. Though they did not have Christmas trees, as we assume, they did show their pedigree by literally decorating with stuffed exotic animals. Lucy Worsley, who I love dearly, offered a Pawn My TV to take me inside the Tudor mines. I said, that would be damn fine. Like, ooh, girl, yes, I'll follow you there anytime. She says she'll give me a sense of what it smelt like, felt like. I can't help but have my intrigue spike. She assures the public listening that other than glistening candlelight, there's a lot we don't get right about the history of Christmas. 'Cause we have some deep wish that it was always as cute as Coca-Cola made it. But she teases that it was indeed much, much weirder. It's important to see history clearer if we can. I'm a big fan of Lucy's. She sips the spirits of the time and coughs, stating, well, it's blown my head off. Now that's a toast. The host gets riled up in a sing-song voice with a hey, nonny, nonny, hey. It's a bonny 24th in the countryside, she says. Day 0 by my pagan list, but in Tudor history, it's just not one of the 12. Before Christmas, most people were probably doing something unpleasant and cold and miserable, she says. They were full of burdens, not well-cooked hens, like their King Henry. But for many, many nights, they would fight hunger for God as they plodded away. The entirety of Advent would have been fasting for 4 weeks. A bleak, strict stretch of abstinence, enshrined in law and mandate. In between shivering and breaking their backs on the plow, one indulgence was allowed, to decorate, decorate, decorate. Holly, ivy, and bay, and a few sprigs of rosemary. What beauty! Leaves in the house to stave off the darkness. The walls were dressed with the green splendor of nature, to the pagans called mother. Now we cover the walls with Martha Stewart goods and blinky lights, a similarly influenced sight, but rather than nailing up boughs, now we do it with tinsel. Well, back then, they brought the green of the earth inside, but we've only started this fortnight ride. Heralded by the birth of Christ. First day, day 1. How do kings do it up on the 25th day? The self-punishment was over, time to feast. Henry liked to spear boars. He so looked forward to his team of cooks making him meat pies by the book. They had much knack in the act of meat mincing. The whole court needed no convincing to gobble these pies down. They were also called shred pies. The hides were skinned and the suet collected. You don't want to know what that is. It was carefully inspected. Not a single shred could be neglected if it were for the man who held the country's reins. Unlike modern folks, the cooks had to strip all the veins, endure the pain. There were insane ingredients brought in from afar, jars of peccary seeds from Africa, grains of paradise. Gee, that sounds nice. Kebab pepper all the way from Java. Prunes and raisins were woven in with pride. Sweet meat was stuffed inside pastry, and the relationship between currants, raisins, dates, and meats forged together for the first time. The historical expert tells her to squidge it through your fingers. It squirts between her knuckles, and she chuckles. She's about to buckle under the grossness, and her cook hostess says, "Well, you eat it, don't you?" She replies perfectly, "Ugh, I eat it. I don't squeeze it." Only the most expensive meats were adequate. Pardon me. Young lads in the palace had to turn the spit, and he had better pretend he likes it, 'cause it's an insult not to. There was always a coffer of each household, the keeper of the gold, the one who was never told what to do. Henry, as you know, was the ultimate coffer. He took anything offered, and many things that weren't. He spent over £7,000 just to make Christmas. He must have taken a bit after his father, who also had a rather notorious reputation for avarice. Royalty, of course, gets the choicest morsels, surrounded by magic birds like peacock and goose, stuffed and living. Everything has to scream bling, as Lucy says. Day 2, St. Stephen's Day, according to the Tudors. Day 1, according to our pagan version, which I'm certain I prefer. One thing between them is sure. Alms were given to the poor folks. Basically, what they didn't gorge on, they gave away for some Catholic brownie points. Giving them the dole. It could be their only... I wrote cheddar joys. Yep, cheddar joys. That's me writing quickly. It could be their only Christmas joys, the king's leftovers. The rich thought it would get them points to get into heaven. Poets liked this philanthropic act. We banquet the rich with the poor. But there was a catch. There was a law that the poor folks had to give the rich blokes a specifically assigned gift for their generosity. Huh, fancy that. But to complicate these 12 nights, the heathen version puts day 2 as Mother's Night. Despite the Catholic and Christian churches gaining power, there were still known cults dedicated to the matrons, aka maitre and matrones. They hone in on femininity as the thing to be celebrated, and the goddess, Idris, is cited as a source of praise. Not only on this day, but on many days. Those in the know would say blessings to shine light upon the ancient mothers and goddesses who led to our existence, their birth-giving fertility. Blessed be Disser and Nana, Freya, Frigga, Sigyn, Not, Iduna, Suna, Mani, Singthagunt, Dagger, Mundilfari. The starry skies could not hold all their wise words, but let us serve up more Tudor concepts on both lists, and several others. Day 3 to the pagans, and 4, I guess, for Tudors, takes a sad turn. Candles are burned for remembrance on Childermas, Children's Mass. It commemorates the wild, savage, but totally true biblical event when King Herod's order, in reaction to an Old Testament prophecy, was given. To this day, the slaughtered children are considered martyrs, but by many in the church. When Herod heard of the birth of the King of Jews, straining the certainty of his reign, he went insane, and in the name of the prophecy, ordered the execution of all the male children in Bethlehem. Gotta say some amens for an atrocity like that. A famous carol or a cowl about it features the howling of sorrow for losing a child. It focuses on a lyric about Lulé. Lulé is a baby goat. It represents the innocence and hope lost. So many mothers had their children perish in Tudor times that their minds could find much empathy with the horrible, scary act inflicted by Herod. Then in a very odd, quick turn, after burning all that energy and sorrow, day 4 in the Tudor and heathen ways was all about just partying hard all damn day. They were big fans of devoting this day to glorious mayhem with a sprinkle of misrule. A particularly cool facet of this bash was the high-class lord of misrule. He had his very own fool at his disposal. He had many tools and jewels and contortionists on hand to demand everyone make sport in the court. He cavorted with his lusty guts, as he called them, the ones who decided what was and what wasn't off limits. And at this getting lit banquet, a getting lit banquet, who could read that? Who wrote that? And at this getting lit banquet, not much was off limits. One of them, the reenactors at least, theatrically decrees. Oh my God, tongue twisters. One of the reactors theatrically decrees, announcement! Absolutely nothing is about to happen. He was historically the ringleader of revelry. Damn, please, someone give me that job. He had very, very high class status and was considered to have expertise in chaos. Among the villagers, who also had slaves, those considered the lowest of the classes were made to be the misrule rabble lords. They were sometimes called the Christmas Prince. It's a hint to what could have eventually become the Father Christmas notion. This night was a potion of too many glasses of spirits and throwing caution to the wind. They were experts of debauchery, and they were rewarded heavily for their indulgent and playful insights. The cowls were more serious for faces wearing frowns on their jowls, but they were also making merry songs that came out in the streets and in taverns, carols. Even the king wrote one of these, described by Lucy as a Christmas pop song of the time. Rock on. Day 5. This day matches up for Pagan and Tudor, the most prestigious feast. It's a celebration of a beast. Bringing in the boar is sure to impress. Everyone got dressed in their best to eat the wine-soaked and decorated head. This cowl, the boar's head in hand bear I, bedecked with bays and rosemary, as I understand is the rarest dish in all of the land, to cheer you all this Christmas, the boar's head with mustard. It is described by the historical foodie as so macho. Cannot get more feast-like. Lucy explains the texture, very unsure about tasting it. The snout is like spam. The food historian corrects her. Well, very, very, very nice spam. Damn, looks gross. But any host would be proud, as it spent 7 hours boiling in wine. Considered mighty fine, representing a veritable gold mine, as it had real gold leaf on its tusks. Henry was a hottie back then. A sexy king rockin' bling and finding the choice cuts. His butt was growing quickly, showing how much he loved his boar. I'm sure he needed stretchy breeches. Also on day 5, sports were played abundantly, because they were typically illegal. It was the only time you could play balls or tennis. They'd be burned any other time. They'd burn your balls and rackets. If sports were allowed, they believed it would lead to gambling and cavorting. Judging by our modern times and mind-controlling sports betting apps, I think they were on to something perhaps. Day 6, as the history goes, it was also illegal to go out in masks. So they did it anyway. And they didn't sing sweetly. No, much more creepy. They mummed. Mumming. This is where we get mum's the word. Like vampires, they had to be let in if they knocked on your door. Oh, and they were wearing really, really scary, creepy masks. I forgot to add that into the poetry. You had to guess who it was. Remember, no talking, only mumming, in the scariest masks you've ever seen. Then playing dice for money. They couldn't communicate in any other way. Creepy. Very creepy. But they had to be let in. It was meant to be menacing. This was likely stolen and turned into our concept of trick-or-treaters. Edgy. Lucy described it, that it was unfortunate that we no longer had the edgy anarchy of mumming. I just loved that line, she said. It's a shame we've lost the edgy anarchy of mumming. Day 7 was New Year's Eve. It wasn't the blowout back then it is now. They were saving their mojo for the 12th night as their climax, as it were, and they made damn sure it was. Day 8 was New Year's Day, and Snow Day if you're going on the heathen way. This is when Tudors would give their gifts. The rich and powerful and popular competed for who did the best giving. This created a oh, you guys, I'm tired. This created a VIP present list, essentially separating naughty from nice. It seemed the king had a bit of a vice for being pampered in goodies and bribes. One queen perhaps paid with her life for not giving him enough. Tough break. This queen of the moment, Catherine of Aragon, was one day gone. She essentially got disappeared for her perceived shoddy gifts and behavior. That doesn't seem in the spirit of the king's supposed savior. The king was also was always demanding that anyone with social standing cough up stellar gifts to be ranked. I'm guessing thanks weren't given very readily. They'd make a public display of each gift to be judged by all. Your outfit better also be on mad Tudor fleek, because they were seeking a place in the pecking order, bordering on the creme de la creme. Gloves full of money instead of socks full of chocolate. Luxurious. Gifts from near and far, the next raising the bar more than the last. Boar spears, human tears in glasses, bear skins, thin silk, breast milk in gold chalices, bejeweled mallets, pampered greyhounds, hampers full of stylish gowns, enough liquor to drown in, literal gold spoons to put in their offspring's mouths, even houses, anything for clout. No doubt earning such favor were those who gave the king sweet treats and no doubt earning such favor were those who flavored the king's sweet treats and desserts. Royal icing, then called sugar plate, was turned into figurines of the king's fine mates. Sugar was a prestigious ingredient, imported by imperial bigwigs and covered in gold. The white powder, only owned by those with power, was almost as impressive as the gold. Confits fit for, well, a king. Confits fit for, well, a king. Rolled in sugar hour after hour. The balls getting bigger, as Lucy says. Confectionery department was highly sought out. Just the sweets took 3 whole days. Then Lucy starts to sway a little when she samples typical Tudor tittles at a tavern, aka got Tudor shwasted. Drinks were made of carefully foraged for flavors. These spices were a sign of who was on that nice list, aka rich. Wealthy folks got these in abundance, or commoners would pitch together to get a groot, which was a collection of spices used in place of hops. Basically, goodies collected to make bottles to pop. One of the historic enthusiasts drinking it confesses, yes, you could get through quite a lot of it. The historians describe people working all their lives to make things for the king to imbibe in that made the eyes and palate zing, marzipan chessboards and pieces. During this time of feasts, competing and seating charts based on status, partying and praying were all jumbled together. The dynasty were given more free passes, as you would suspect, everybody getting rat-roaringly drunk, also sunk to their knees for forgiveness for it the next day. But it was fine in their minds to let loose, as it was a time when the kind of going off the rails was just accepted, 'cause it's Christmas. So find your bliss, and then repent. The Puritans certainly didn't get on with the fripperies and flippancy. They think it should all be so much more sober, says a priest. Essentially, they single-handedly killed many of the beautiful traditions, dead for a while. They killed many of the beautiful traditions dead for a while, and did it with a godly smile. They chomped down on many of the good bits, spit them out, and called them evil. Typical. But lucky for Henry, the fun stuff was still in place. One face he always had at his best parties was Anne of Cleves, whom he had married. She divorced him a year later, yet still remained his close homie. Rare for anyone who left him lonely, some of whom he had banished. But she must have crushed it in that relationship. She loved to sip on the best mead with him. Lucy begins a perfectly reenacted such feast. She doesn't seem the least thrilled with the intricately made edible chess piece. It tastes of rose soap, she says. The historian tells her, well, the ladies were expected to enjoy these, as all ladies were expected to be soft, dainty, flowery things. Damn, we all know that old tired song society sings. They'd bring around gilded dishes of sucket, which was candied oranges and kumquats. Ooh, kinky nectar. Then they bring out the star of the bash, this massive dessert, as Lucy describes it, an utterly gigantic cake. 12th cake, as it was called, was more than a yard, or a whole hoop, across. Whoa, you know you're a total boss if you eat a cake like that. No wonder Henry got so fat. Those in attendance danced a masked dance with intricate theatrical masks playing goddesses, gods, mythological animals. There were dance-offs of morality and conceptual disagreements. Good dancers showed great status, but had to be equally impressive with a sword to move forward in the ranks. It was also a night to flirt, to don your best 15 layers of skirts and 20-pound headpieces to get a piece off the dance floor. Catherine Howard, the 5th wife, palled around with former wife Anne. They even boogied together drunk one night after Henry went Betty by. Time flies, of course, and as it did, the people began to do what the church bid them to do and comply with their demands. The clergy, of course, were not big fans of the glitzy, indulgent fun stuff. Much merriment was crushed by the church, but booze always endures, for sure. What a whirlwind. I skipped. I skimmed. Evergreen Day was missed, St. Distaff Day, and the eve of Epiphany. But hey, what can I say? I've been writing this thing reverently since yesterday. There's much at play in these dozen-plus days when rich and poor alike found a way to strut and get their glut on and sing songs and dance and chant and party without it being seen as wrong or foolhardy. And then just pray it all away. There's such an array of stories about this span of time, it's hard to find words to give concise blurbs for such absurd amounts of tradition, myth, history, and the origins of brightly wrapped gifts. I hope I did it some small justice. Whoo! It's a mouthful, I'm telling you. I left out so much of it, and the history of it was saturated. But, I concentrated on some of my favorite parts, and I hope that you realize it was from my heart, and I may have left out some historical flipperies, as the priest called it. What was that word he called it? I absolutely loved it. The fripperies! I added flippancy because it rhymes with flipperies, obviously. The slippery slope of flipperies, I get it. On our walk today, we couldn't remember all the 12 thingamadoodles in the song, so I had to look that up. Songwriters of that song are Sammy Kahn and James Van Heusen. Don't think we've ever given them enough credit, but if you need a reminder, as we did, trying to sing it upon the trail and not remembering it all, it's a partridge in a pear tree, 2 turtle doves, 3 French hens, 4 calling birds, 5 golden rings, 6 geese a-laying, 7... Oh, we saw geese flying today as well. 7 swans a-swimming, 8 maids a-milking, 9 ladies dancing, 10 lords a-leaping, 11 pipers piping. Wait, prop alert. It's not the right kind of pipe as it's a musical one, but I had to bust it out because it reminds me of Frosty, my favourite Christmas song. 11 pipers piping, 12 drummers drumming. And I learned today, whilst researching a million pages of this stuff, some variations of the song have a juniper tree or a June apple tree rather than a pear tree. Fancy that. Presumably based on a mishearing of partridge in a pear tree. So I'll have to cite my sources separately, everyone. I apologise. It was massive amounts of research. But it was quite fun. It's quite fun. The church and the nobles and the ladies and the lords and the flippery and the floppery and of course, as I prefer, the mayhem and contortionists. That's my favourite part. So from my little holiday loving heart to all of yours, pop. We got Sleepy Pups. Happy Yule, happy Christmas. Thanks for listening to me and being on my poetry journey. It's been quite a thing, hasn't it? Hasn't it, dear and Luke? I've done a lot of poetry this year. Yes, indeed, dear. Yes, indeed. I haven't busted out my apron today. Did a bit of baking. Made some rolls that are absolutely heartbreakingly delicious in the best way. So I guess that's all I've got to say. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to eat my weight in Yule Log now. And finally got my Peter Pan grandpa looking Christmas nightgown. I'm so happy about it. Might even wear it into town. So, okay, that's it. Funky one. 12 days of Christmas research all over the place. I'm sure there's some things that are flipsy flopsy and sideways and jumbly, but you'll forgive me because I've got a corncob pipe. Okay, good night, sweet Christmas, happy Yule, be cool, love each other. Love is the part that matters most.